Everybody's happy with recording, please?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great. Yes, just a quick update from me, and I see there's a few missing tonight, but just to say that we've got our social media up and going, and thanks to Likeable Lab and Phil's team, they've had to put up with quite a bit up to this point, because we discovered that we didn't have access, or we didn't know who had the access to our business management account, which meant there were some things we couldn't do around being able to put some advertising behind the social media, being able to also try and find like people that we could be talking to and boosting. So we've got that. All I can do is try and encourage everybody to follow us and repost. Part of the reason we did this was so that it could help the PIAs in terms of, you know, content that they could then be putting on to their members, and you know, being seen to be quite active with social media. The other thing is, if you've got anything that's really interesting and would have a national reach in terms of events or information and things, then we're really happy to put that into our posts. So we've got a relationship with Likeable Lab where we're working on a month ahead with posts and what sort of posts we might put up, and if anything important comes in, we then just shuffle around and reorder them. So that was number one for me. The other one was that we are looking at introducing Microsoft Office. We've had a very with the NZ PIF, we've had a very old webmail system that has to run through another vehicle, and we've been using Dropbox, and obviously with everyone located in different places, there hasn't really been a really good centralized filing system. So there's a risk with Dropbox, there's a risk of us not having a centralized system and files not being accessible with change of contractors or board or whatever. So we're moving over. That will mean, though, that we're reviewing our email system. We'll take it all into Microsoft 365. So we will probably be using Teams and reallocating emails. So do realise that as part of that process, there'll have to be some training of people that are using the emails for different regions as well. And the third thing from me was just website, given that we've got social media operating and feeding, you know, getting feeds through from potential new members through to the website. We're sort of working on it should have been done, but we've been held up a bit, but working on the landing page, the join landing page, and making that a little bit more user-friendly in terms of selling the benefits, directing people directly through to the PIAs then. So that will mean that once they're directed through, your job is to convert them. Our job is to get them through to a PIA, and then for you to convert them. And I'd like to have a discussion going forward where we may be able to work together in terms of doing a deal with anybody who's interested in joining can come along to the first meeting or event or whatever, and we all consistently do that, which we don't do at the moment. A lot do, but some are charging, and we don't really have a deal that we can actually be all selling. So that's something that I'd like to see happen as we're going forward. So that's probably the key things for me, really, the big ones, because I know we're tight for time. If anyone's got any questions, happy to answer those.
We had a RPM meeting on Tuesday night, and there was compliments were given about the postings on the Federation Facebook page. So that was good feedback.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'll jump in there because I'd like to welcome Matthew Gilligan on board with us tonight for a short session. He's had a huge day, and so have I actually. 3 radio interviews and a lot of chat going around, because every time there's announcements, then suddenly it all goes mad with media wanting comments. And the announcement today was from ACT, and the biggest thing that ACT are doing is offering the tax back, or one of the biggest, I should say, the tax back from April next year. So we heavily want that. We've had several discussions with David now about it, and Matthew's helped facilitate some of those. And David, picked the phone up and rang me today and actually told me one of the things in their announcement policy actually was incorrect, and the 90-day no-fault rule will be reinstalled. So I'm not sure if you've seen that policy, but Matthew has done a lot of work with, particularly obviously Labour National and ACT, and had Chris Bishop and Paul Goldsmith on this week. On his panel, had David last week. So he's hearing a lot from them about what they're planning to do, and interacting a lot in the background with what's needed in our sort of space. So Matthew, if I can hand over to you to just fill us in on that.
Hi guys, thanks for inviting me along. Not sure that I can add too much more than what you guys already know. You're doing a great job, Sue and Tim. You've really got your foot on things. You raised that this afternoon, the issue with ACT, because they launched their policy document today for landlords, and it omitted to talk about no cause tenancy notices being reinstated. And so Tim pointed out that it wasn't on there, and so I've got a thread with the politicians on it, which is great. So it's a bunch of pretty right-wing property investors who are all very upset with Labour. They're all landlords, bankers, lawyers, property planners, just people on the go in the industry. And then there's Paul Goldsmith and David Seymour. So a lot of the time it'll just be chit chat about the property industry, but then we can drag the politicians in when we want them. So this afternoon I added Tim and Sue, and Tim raised the point that no cause tenancy notices were not in their policy, and David was getting a bit defensive about it, and he started to get slammed by a few people. So I went off to the side and said, hey David, this is a terrible look. We're rallying behind you and supporting you, and of course GRA are funding ACT and National for that matter. So we're really in there helping him, and it turned out that it was a mistake in their policy. So between the PIF and us, we fixed their policy this afternoon, and they put it back in. I don't actually see too much difference between ACT and National now. I think I've been running some slides. Some of you will have possibly seen them. Here they are here. Party offerings and tax rules. So on interest non-deduction, Labour obviously want to keep it. The Greens want to keep it. National are phasing it out over 2 years. ACT want to repeal it. ACT are pretending, I think, in many regards. We've asked David if he'll make it a non-negotiable in his coalition agreement with National, and he said no. So he's buying our vote, but he doesn't have to do it because he'll hide behind National. And that's my take on it. He says he believes it's the right thing to do, but notes that the Nats have said that the country's coffers are in such dire straits that they're going to have to take everything they can get, and they basically want to milk landlords for another 2 years with those rules. So it is what it is. I don't think we're going to do any better than that. And I've really given it to the Nats. Like I went to school with Paul Goldsmith, which is useful. So I've been swearing at him because I have that relationship with him. offline saying, you know, what the F are you guys doing? This is just an envy tax. There is no moral basis for it. If you continue with it, you are milking landlords. It's capital gains tax and drag. It's revolting. You should be immediately repealing it. And that's why we're all swinging behind ACT. So I played the two parties off against each other in my own little political game. And then what he said was, well, you know, we won't make policy with a gun to our head. We appreciate what you say, but we're not going to make policy with a gun to our head. And I said, oh, well, fair enough, but just be aware that the gun is loaded. We're going to pull the trigger. Everybody's going to get behind ACT. So it's your choice. And true to his word, that is their policy. So I've pushed as hard as I can. I know you guys have been pushing it. And that's what we're going to get, 2-year phased out interest on deduction rules. And I don't think David Seymour's going to be able to put any more pressure on them. Next thing, loss ring fencing, there's no change. David said he'd consider it, but he's not going to be in a position where he can push it through, I don't think. But at least he agrees with us that loss ring fencing should go. And the Nats have no plan to change that. On Brightline, I'm sure you're aware the Nats are at 2 years. ACT wants to abolish it. Personally, I think both of them are wrong. But I've said to both of them that investors really don't care about this. This is the bottom of our list of issues. I think 5 years is better. Otherwise, you have an automatic, almost automatic audit on the sale of a property with any substantial gain by IRD. In the absence of Brightline, because they come after you for the intention test, and so everybody's treated with suspicion. At least with a decent Brightline rule of, say, 5 years, it doesn't affect us long-term investors because we keep properties long-term, but the clandestine traders who sort of acquiesce as investors and sell their properties in 2 years and 1 day after they buy it, you know, those sorts of investors get taxed within 5 years, and IRD are less suspicious of us as a community. So I think the balances will be better at 5 years. That's what I've been telling the politicians. CGT, I'm really politicking with this. When I present this slide, I'm pointing out to my listeners that Labor and the Greens are absolutely gagging for wealth taxes and capital gains taxes. And it's only because Labor know that it's political suicide that they don't actively campaign for it. And they're leaving it to the Greens, who seem to be making good grounds off that stuff. On tenancy law repeal, we had that scare this afternoon with ACT, but pretty much the Nats and ACT are both saying that they will repeal no reason termination notices. So we'll get those back, which is just such good news. It's really excellent. And that's your political landscape right there. The end of automatic rollover of fixed to periodic terms, both the Nats and ACT are also going to repeal that. Yeah,
it wasn't mentioned in the ACT policy today. I just had a look online, and they had corrected that mistake with the interest deductibility. With the 90-day no clause notice on their website, but there's no mention of the
automatic end of the
that's right.
Yeah.
Fixed tenancies. Yeah.
Yeah, well, both the Nats and ACT have said they're going to do it, so they'll get it. And you know that automatic rollover from fixed term to periodic is not an issue if you can give a no cause letter at the end, and then it just comes down to the term of the notice. So that is an issue if you're running students and things like that. But David has said it to me that he's going to do that, and so is Paul Goldsmith. And
yeah, that's a big one for Wellington, particularly, and Dunedin as well. So
Otago, yeah.
we're very keen to make sure that gets through. Absolutely.
Massive issue.
Yeah, I wouldn't hide behind the 90 day. It's not the same thing. I definitely got to get rid of that fixed to periodic rollover.
Yeah, fair enough.
The point I make, of course, is that there is actually no such thing as a no reason termination notice. What it actually is a no stated reason. As I keep on saying, there's always a reason why you terminate a tenancy. It's just that you're not required to state it.
Yeah.
And the second thing, in terms of the tax deductibility, when the politicians go on about how they need the money, they're actually losing money, because every landlord that says, that's it, I can't afford to keep this property, I will sell this property and I will stop being a landlord, that tenant then goes on to the state housing list, and it costs the government far more to house that tenant than they are getting from the landlord who was previously housing that tenant.
Yeah.
So it actually costs the government money. If you look at the full circle of the whole cash flow, the money they get from the landlord is less than the cost of housing that tenant in a kāinga or a house.
Yeah, it was interesting today. I develop houses, and today I saw through various means, I saw another developer's numbers. KO are paying him in Auckland $820,000 for a 2-bedroom unit, and for a 3-bedroom terraced house, he's getting 1140. I mean, man, KO are paying big dollars. Like, I can't sell my units in the marketplace for that. It'd be
Even if you look at the operating cost, forgetting the capital cost,
Yeah.
every KO house, on average, costs the taxpayer, over and above the rent paid, just over $16,000 per year that they lose on every house. And they're not getting $16,000 off the person that used to house that as a private landlord, but they're now having to pay something north of $16,000 to house that person. So to say this, they need the money from the landlords. They're actually losing more at the other end. And I think that needs to be stressed.
On the KO front, you guys might be interested to hear that I've got a lot of houses in with community housing providers for interest deductibility. And we've seen PwC going into the CHPs and giving them advice on how to reconstruct their tenancy agreements, and they're trying to reconstruct the agreements such that the landlord becomes directly contracted with the tenant, and they effectively operate as a manager but with no liability. And that's just terrible. It's all the downside, which is the R&M and the tenancy tribunal issues, and the only thing you're getting is interest deductibility. So we just flat out refuse to do that and say get out if they try and do that with our tenancies, and then they back down. So spread that through your community. If we all stand up to them and just say, you're dreaming, you're not getting that, there's the door, get out. We'd rather sell the house than deal directly with your tenants. They're your problem, not ours. And we've been very successful in doing that. And we've 100% of the time, all of the CHPs that have tried it have backed down. Second thing is with insurance, we have finally got a solution to the insurance problem, because as you're probably aware, all of the New Zealand insurance companies do not insure occupation inside 90 days. Crombie Lockwood say they do, but they don't. Their policy falsely says that they will insure social housing tenants, but if it's transitional housing or emergency housing, they don't do it. And if you've got less than 90 days, you've got problems with EQC cover, because it falls out of the residential category. So it's a real minefield. Anyway, long story short, we've now got commercial cover at the same price as the residential, and it covers it, all of it. So
Actually,
possible.
I'm cutting in there, Matthew, but next year we want to run some seminars, and there definitely will be landlords around the country interested in hearing that. So let's note that, and that we could use that as a topic.
I'll just give you the information, you guys can run it out.
Key question, and I see, have you got a question there, Lee? No.
No, I was just going to ask him who's doing the commercial, because obviously we work with Emerge as well.
Yeah, so we deal with Frank Risk in Hamilton. So Frank Risk are a broker, and they've gone to a is it Lloyd's? Might be Lloyd's. To be honest, I don't even care. I just write the check, and I've consolidated. I've got a lot of JVs. I've consolidated them all together, plus my stuff, and managed to get 60 houses in the pool. And we've got a policy for 60 houses, and it doesn't matter who owns them. They just say, well, you're all in an associated group, and we get the same rates as Initio. Initio is really
Wow.
quite cost
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah,
So
Initio
it's the
is
same company behind Initio, Renee Swindley, I think his name is.
Yep.
And they're a company of integrity, really good people. And so I've been bitching and moaning with them, saying, come on, get this sorted. Then we went to Crombie Lockwood because we heard they had the right insurance. And when we read it, we thought, oh, this is actually fake news. So we went back to Initio, and they went off and found us a commercial underwriter. So I think that's something that could be scaled through our memberships and through GRA.
Yeah, those co-productions are great, but tonight we just need to stick to our knitting. So any last comments, Matthew, on how whether you feel that levering through ACT to get the tax restored in April, 1st of April, is a workable, how do you think we'll go with that?
I don't think we're going to get any further, to be honest. I think David's dating us, but he's not going to marry us.
He says it will be in the coalition agreement.
Well, he's going to ask for it, and he's already said he'll do that. But I think he'll sacrifice us to get other things. I don't think we're the most important thing to him. That would be my feeling. But it's great to have him there. He's saying all the right things and doing all the right things, and it's really annoying national, because Paul Goldsmith told me how concerned he was that just how hard it was, how left-wing New Zealand is, how close the election is, despite the terrible job that's been done by the current government. Many of the population don't see it, and they're really concerned. It's a hard road that they're on. So and there's also some quite woke left elements in national. Nicola Willis identifies as a progressive, and I really like her, but she's Labour light in some of her views. Many people are describing her as that, and so that introduces an element of risk to organisations like us. So in that regard, I like Seymour because he's hard right, but actually some of Seymour's policies are a bit batshit crazy when you read them, and the Nats are actually a more solid leader of the country. I just like David because he's pulling the Nats to the right, and there is a left-wing element in there that's not healthy, and he's definitely pro-investor, saying all the right thing for investors.
Has there been any mention of what Winston would do?
Oh, look, that guy's a narcissist, and Winston is a party of words to get into power to ingratiate himself. I don't trust that man. I've had dinner with him. Most people have. And, he's in it for himself, and it's all about ego, and he doesn't work very hard. Whereas David Seymour works all day and all night, and the Nats are career politicians who are actually pretty solid people when you get to know them. But I don't trust Winston Peters, and I don't think he's going to get 5%. So a vote for Winston is a wasted vote, because your vote then gets shared proportionately through the voting base.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting election night. I'll talk with you later about or further about the idea we've got for next week, and I'll talk with these guys separately, Matthew. So if we can say goodbye there, we really appreciate your comments. It's quite revealing for everyone. We sort of all sit in the background wondering what's going on, and you've been really close to those politicians and shared it with us. So appreciate that.
My pleasure, Ollie. I love you and leave you.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Guys. See you. Bye.
Hey guys, yeah, great to hear from him, because he does have a bit of a political nous, I've found, and having a bit of co-production has got us closer to hearing some of the policies, and that's been really useful, and to being on the money, being on the nose. Like I said, David Seymour rang me today and apologised about the no fault, the no cause tenancy or no reason 90-day things that David, he really wants it to be there, and wants to support us in getting the housing market or our rental market back on its feet. The idea I've got two ideas to present to you, or to innovations I want to run past you. One is to have a political panel next week that all members are invited to come to. I'm proposing to have Matthew as part of that panel, Peter, Tim on it, because they've been very involved with our advocacy work. and myself, and I'm hoping to get an economist, Brad Olsen being one name that I've contacted but haven't heard back from. So any suggestions?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I would personally prefer if we didn't use Brad Olsen, since he's speaking 3 weeks later at conference.
Oh, okay. All right. I hear you. So, but this one is really focused on where the parties, what way people might use their vote to count. And so I think
something
it's
different then.
insightful. So he won't be talking about anything he would cover at conference. It was entirely focused on the election, and that's how the tool I want to use. I'm not trying to upstage any speakers at PIAs, and we're doing this one would be a test run for similar things next year that add value to what goes on around the country. But this one's because we've got an election, it's going to be very, how are we going to change what's going on in the government, or where do we see this going, and to be insightful and invite members to participate. So we've got the tools, we've got Zooms, and it hasn't been done before, and I think we should try it as a communication tool. So yeah, that's what is proposed. If I can't, I'll try and talk to Brad again tomorrow. If not, there's a couple of other economists I could try, but I think that's kind of a useful mix of a panel. So interested if you've got feedback separately or want to send something to me, just with any ideas or thoughts about it. Is it something you could promote to would promote to your members? Because we're going to have to really go hard with them and say, jump on, come and have a listen. Who are you going to vote for? Want to hear more about these people property wise? Let's do this. So yeah, let's give this a go. So that's the first thing, and just to say, a lot does go on in advocacy every single day. And when those policies we put out, and Tim's written some really good media commentaries and media releases. Peter's has too, and they do get picked up, but nothing like when a political party puts out a policy and the media want to talk to us. So it's good to have those opportunities, and if it happens in your local areas, I think we just have to grab them and say how it is for us. Otherwise, people don't understand, and we don't get the messages across. So any other comments on advocacy or questions?
I've got a real quick question on your Zoom that you want to have. Are you thinking about doing it in the evening or like a lunchtime? Because bearing in mind it's school holidays, there's a lot of people that might not be able to make it depending on what's going on. Like there's people away and things like that. So, and like a lunchtime would be quite good versus a.
That's interesting. Yeah. What's the feedback on that? Because I was thinking next Thursday night, but if we could do it during the day, if we thought we'd get more uptake, it depends when. Obviously, we can send it out later as a webinar, but we want people as bigger audience as we can at the time. We're trying to do it pre-voting, so next week's sort of our last window to have it.
Lunchtime probably wouldn't work for any workers.
Yeah, so you think evening?
Yeah, I think.
As you said, if it goes out on a webinar, there.
Yeah. Otherwise, people can watch it the next day.
I think you're going to have some people that evening and some people that day works best. It's just one of those things. You just got to pick one and try for it.
Yeah,
I am just thinking feedback wise from my members. Anytime we've tried to help them at lunchtime, the feedback I get is, "What do you not think any of us have to have day jobs? Do you all think we own many rental properties and don't have to work?"
No, but you're allowed a lunch break. That's a legal requirement.
Oh, I know that, but apparently they don't.
Yeah. I don't know that listening to a political forum's going to be a good lunch break.
Oh, not necessarily.
So who was going to be on there?
Planning to have three of us, Tim, Peter, myself, and Matthew Gilligan. He's going to heavily go on the National Act side, and also an economist.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, with a target on Brad Olsen, but may not be able to get him.
Yep. Why did you choose Brad? I've never found him to be Too pro-property or too far to the right, should we say?
Yeah, we thought so too. I didn't listen to him at Canterbury, but Anne did, and she was thoroughly impressed with his presentation and how it worked. And what did you think, Anne? Property? Mute, you're on mute.
Oh, she's on.
She's on mute. Mute.
Yeah, I'm just unmuting, sorry. Yeah, I found him really good. He seemed to have a really good grip on how the policies of the different parties and what it would mean in terms of the housing market and that broader perspective. And most of the people that were there, I mean, all the people that were there seemed to really enjoy it. But I do know he's been used by some of the other PIAs as well. So if there's feedback to the, differently, then probably worth listening to that. But I thought he was good.
I know there's quite mixed feelings about Ed McKnight from Opus, but he's got his finger on the pulse, and like people are drawn to them. Half my membership love Opus Partners, and we've got them speaking next month, 4 days after the election, and we've sold so many tickets. So you'd also get their publicity and contact to all of their database, which aren't members of our associations, if you're doing it to drive their listeners to the federation or associations. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, I'm a bit hesitant because people think we're promoting Opus because of the magazine and blah, blah, blah. But I think they're extremely gifted presenters, to be honest. Ed McKnight is extremely gifted. Yeah. But whether he's politically, has anyone watched this podcast, listen and said he's political? Oh, well, actually, he'd be a good person to ask in that case.
He'd be the first person I'd suggest.
Okay, good to know. I'd be happy to go to him. Great idea.
I think if you've got to be aware that there's a sales pitch and stuff like that, but that doesn't, me, because I listen to the podcast every day, it doesn't detract from the data and insights that are data driven.
Yeah, yes. I think they're particularly good, and he's a great speaker.
I think if you did get him in, you would need to stress beforehand that we're after a information-driven meeting, not a let me sell you this type meeting. That's you have to make that fairly clear beforehand, I would say.
Well, it's the same with most people, including Matthew Gilligan. He's an accountant firm, but he doesn't. Yeah, I've never heard him really talk about the firm much.
But somebody like Brad obviously is not selling. He's selling information, I suppose. But he's not trying to
right.
Anyway, over to you.
Ed probably wouldn't charge us. Brad probably would. So I think as a test run for an information sort of podcast or information webinar, it's good. It would work well. So we're really keen to try it and see if it's something we can roll out next year. So it's partly what it would be. The other thing I'm going to run past you, and sorry if we're just rushing, but otherwise we end up on these things all night. I'll quickly share the screen because I had a meeting with a guy at this PPG Paints, and I like his, how does that work? I've gone share screen, desktop one, whiteboard. Oof. I've had this problem before. Okay. Sorry about this. I might have to send it to you. Camera. I really should test this before I test it out on here, so I won't. Accessibility. No, that's not working for me. No, I'm not clever enough to share that screen. But it's PPG Paints have sent us, they've created a whole proposal, a whole brochure, sorry, for our members. And it's all about the New Zealand Property Investors associations and being able to offer your tenants a paint product from Bunnings. And I was in Bunnings today having to buy a house lot of paint for my mother's rental. And I went to the PPG shelf and bought their paint because based on what he showed me in a demonstration that their paint doesn't drip, it doesn't. So there he was saying, the tenants can paint it. I'm actually going to give it to a painter to use, but it was economical. I got $50 off, which you don't usually on paint at Bunnings. I usually buy the more expensive stuff because I thought it was better. PPG Paints are actually the biggest paint company in the world. They do from commercial to cars to every kind of paint. So he had me well convinced. But the brochure will get sent to you tomorrow with the information from this meeting. Have a read, please. Interested in your feedback. It's designed to be something you can give to tenants and offer them. They can paint a room. There's not every tenant I would give it to, but I certainly would give it to some of mine. And you know, say if they do want to paint, that's fine, and they have to do it by these restrictions. So there's that offering.
Also, that means they might be able to cover up things before inspections.
Yeah, true, but you know,
So it's done. It's like, no, don't have to mention that. It's already sorted. We've got some tenants that are doing that at the moment. It's the friends for a property management company, and they're just getting it done before the manager goes through.
Yeah. So the whole trick to that, the crux of it is that it's a limited colour range. So the tenants get to choose these limited range of colours, which means they're not painting it purple. They're painting one of these colours, and they're quite nice range. So when you see the brochure, please, have a look, give us some feedback. So Jan's going to fill us in on the awards.
Sorry, my video is not working tonight. Just wanted to say that the judging is underway, and we will be able to probably get in touch with people who are successful next week. That's all to be said at the moment.
Oh, thanks, Jan. The other thing that's going on is elections, and really good to talk in amongst your certain areas and nominations are going on. And we've had one from Wellington, thanks, Peter. And I'm hoping we're going to get one from Taranaki or thereabouts, you know, for the Auckland, for the Northland area. But yeah, I think it is good to talk within your PIAs. We're all in this together, and to see, well, you know, because particularly say for the Northland region, you know, if they've been, the far north has been well represented by Gordon Lambeth over the last few years. So, you know, perhaps that it's time for the lower down the region. And Peter certainly does a good job there in the sort of central and gets out and about around the PIA. So that's great. In Southern, you know, we've been well represented over the last few years in a spread. So yeah, any comments on that, Peter? You're on mute. Peter's on.
Kerry's doing a good job anyway.
Good.
All right, can you hear me now? Good.
Yep.
Yes, I sent out a message a few days ago to the northern area presidents, basically saying that, you know, Gordon was standing down and I did need help in my area. It's a large area to cover with 5 regions. And I did sort of, please, I would like people to step forward and put their hands up. So hopefully if you're from one of the northern areas here, you got that message. And I've given the details more or less of what is required in an attachment. And I also hopefully sent a copy of the nomination form out as well, in case you have lost the previous ones. But it is a job that does take time. You do need to know what you're doing. You do need to have a certain amount of interpersonal skills, shall I say. But it can be a rewarding job going around talking to various people and meeting quite a few interesting people. So, you know, I reiterate my plea. We would like someone, hopefully from either Rotorua, Waikato or Tauranga. It will help spread the thing around. We don't want it to be an Auckland-centric thing if we can avoid it. And as you say, Gordon has been excellent up north, but he is now on the board of the Kaipara Council and is finding himself rather pushed for time. So yeah, please get the word out, and we welcome anybody who is interested. Basically, the only requirements is you have to have been on the board of your local PIA for 1 year within the last 3, which means you don't have to be currently on the board, and you have to be a resident in that area for 6 months. I'm not quite sure how those two things fit together, but that's what the regulations say. So please, if you know of anybody who is willing and able, a bit of subtle arm twisting would be appreciated. I'm finished.
Right, thank you. What's next, Kerry?
Next, we've got sharing of information. Just commenting and about an easy way for associations when you've had a good speaker or some evenings that have gone particularly well, of sharing that information out with the other associations so we can all share the love. I know that Pauline has got a folder that she keeps all her speakers and stuff in. What do some of the other associations do for speakers and keeping that information, and are they able to share that along? Hello.
Yeah, as far as I know, at Canterbury, we just sort of have a list that we've got, and I think Nigel. I'm sort of filling in for Nigel tonight. I think he's sort of quite keen on. He mentioned that in his email to me, this particular issue. I guess it just makes sense that everybody shares. Like a lot of things, if we get some economies of scale and instead of everybody repeating what other people are doing, I think that makes a lot of sense. So, in terms of our speaker list, we've sort of got a list somewhere in a folder, probably.
So how far in advance do you have your meetings and speakers planned? Do you know?
I think it varies, particularly because we've just had an AGM and we've got new people. So I think the goal is actually to try and get things lined up like 12 months in advance if we can, but it hasn't always been that case, and it just sort of depends who's taking care of that. Well, it's not my particular department, but that's what I sort of picked up from meetings, that we try and deal with it as now we're trying to deal with it as far in advance as we can, but it just sort of depends on what's going on at the time, especially when you've got a low numbers of people on the executive. It can vary.
We try and do it 12 months. We have a strategy meeting in November and pretty much nail down the following 12 months. It might not necessarily have the speaker, but we'll have the topics, and then it'll be up to each individual who gets assigned to go find a speaker for that topic, as it were. So I see it being quite beneficial. We keep a record of all our speakers, their topics, how many people attended. I would have thought a very simple relational database or spreadsheet online that every association logs into, and just have access to the associations on a separate repository, just speakers, so you can see the association speakers, and one line comment after the meeting from each of the people on the call here. I would find that quite useful, but then you can sort by anything. You can sort by topic, sort by speaker, sort by association. I think it would be a very simple thing to do, and everyone just takes responsibility of putting in who the speakers were, and if you want to put how many people attended, and a simple comment where it's just available to us, so you can put good topic, shit speaker, or whatever you want to put, or entertaining speaker, content, whatever. It's just useful. I would find that useful if it was just a closed database for relevant people in each association.
Would you be able to send through the topics, the way of sorting that information that you think would be beneficial for you? And then there's perhaps that's something that the area reps could do, is just make sure that just gather that information if it hasn't come through as well, just to keep it.
Yeah, because if it's a flat database or a Word document, it just gets lost. It's just boring. No one's going to look at it.
Part of Office, moving to Office 365, I promise we're going to have a SharePoint portal, and it's going to be we'll make an easy system. And that's the reason we're moving to 365, is to make it more universal and use some of the tools. So, that's top of the list. Share contacts.
The only thing I'd add to that, because that's a brilliant idea with all the fields, is add a contact, like how to contact, because we think of speakers and we're like, how do we get in contact with them? And we spend 8 hours trying to get in touch with someone and going through 800 numbers or whatever, and just giving up half the time.
Jan has an Excel spreadsheet with quite a few of the speakers and their contact details on. I actually went through it a couple of years ago and sort of rang most of them up and held out the ones that were either dead, dying, or had lost interest. And that is currently, I think, in Dropbox. Whether that would be the starting point for the sort of thing that Peter is talking about. But that was current up to a couple of years ago, and that basically gave their name, who they were associated with, if they were actually worked for a bank or whatever, and their brief on what they would talk about, and their contact details, and what, if anything, they wanted in return, whether they were going to charge or expenses or whatever. So Jan should still have a copy of that somewhere.
That's another good point you raised about if there's a cost or not, because quite often there, well, there isn't, but sometimes there is. So, yeah.
And it's good to know what they paid.
Don't forget that if you get your area rep in, who is required to visit you once a year, they can actually be usually talked into giving a talk for the evening. And that then, of course, is not only is no cost to you, but the Federation also then covers any travel costs they have as well. So that can be a free meeting if you organise that.
Yes, right.
If I have a chat with Jan about the information I know she's already got, as Nikki and Peter, you guys have for me to contact you and just send you out some stuff and get your feedback so we can make sure it works for you guys and then send it before we send it out to the rest of the group?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll bring Dana into that as well. She keeps the records as well. But anyway, I think Catherine's trying to say something.
I'm just trying to say we had this conversation 12 months ago at a comms meeting.
Yeah.
It would be simple enough right now to at least open up a Dropbox with that form in, rather than have to send it out. So we could have a shared Dropbox until we move to over to 365, which will be hopefully before Christmas. But that I can easily set that up if Jan hasn't already done that. Have you got it as a shared one, Jan?
No, it's not.
Yeah, well, let's invite presidents onto it and put any documents from these meetings in
Well,
it.
the issue is not the Dropbox. The issue is what program it's going to be put into, so it can be ported and easily used.
Yeah, so
it's just interim.
Ideally, it would be
a new system going.
Ideally, it would be good if, like, a president or associations, like if I've got a really good speaker speaking in October, I think other people would get great benefit. I could then go and add that person to the list myself and write a note saying was really good about this topic. Think people should get them in summer about renovations. I don't know, but it would be good if we could actually add people to the list as we find them, rather than having to go through this process every 12 months.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Catherine. It would be a live document. It's a spreadsheet that's in there that people can add to. I mean, 2 years, there'll be a lot of speakers in the last 2 years that probably haven't been captured.
No, not just that, but as I mentioned, we might look at 12 months in advance. There's no reason why we can't put the next 12 months topics or whatever that we're penciled in without doing it, to see if there's some alignment or idea sharing. I see benefit in that as well. If you're planning in that far in advance, why not just stick the topics in on the speaker?
We've actually got a list of videos, as far as I'm aware, at CPIA, that they all get recorded.
Yeah.
So we could go back through those if that was useful, possibly, if people wanted a list of ones that we've already used.
Yeah,
or even if you just give them a rating, tell us which ones were good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, finding speakers shouldn't be an ordeal. We need to share that. So let's get on with that. That's great.
Cool. Right. We'll work on that. And just so that we're not keeping everybody for a long time, is there anything else that you guys want to bring up while we're all here? We're in a place where we can chat.
Can I just make a comment? You should have been getting communications from the company's office who deal with incorporated societies. They're now sending out newsletters about the mandatory change of the new constitution. As I said before, we are working on this. They're good reading if you want to browse through them, but please don't actually do anything at this stage of the game, because we've got this. Tosh, I see here, has been working on this in Christchurch. Obviously, right now we've been concentrating on the election stuff, which is sort of a much closer time constraint. But we do have a calendar worked out as to what we will be doing. So I'll be working with Tosh once the election is passed, and we've all recovered from that. I plan to be in Christchurch later on this year. So I'll get onto them down there, and then we can go through that. And the concept at the moment is we will get a draft constitution to each of you guys sort of fairly early-ish next year, in time for you then to sort of kick it around and make any alterations that you personally want. This is simply a draft constitution. You don't have to adopt it as it is. You then go through it and say, I want to alter this, I want to add that. That's your choice to do that. But all we're stressing now is don't spend time, effort, and worry doing anything right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. With the draft that we've got, it's sort of mostly done, but there's quite a bit of sort of technical
fine tuning.
Yeah, and it's I think it's currently running at about 30 pages, which is, I think it's about 3 times Canterbury original constitution.
Bit like a tenancy agreement now, yeah.
Yeah, and quite a bit of it. Well, what I've done basically, if people are interested, is I've basically taken I went through the Constitution Builder on the Companies Office website and went through, and that's basically spat out a draft that was compatible or compliant with all the new rules. If you look at it, there's quite a bit of it is actually sort of drawn directly from the Act. And having said that, yeah, it's not perfect. But so yeah, it needed tidied up. And I basically merged that with our existing one that's got some PIA specific stuff in there, and just put those together and rationalise them, and then just basically it's a matter of going through the 30 pages and repeatedly going through again and again, just bits and pieces up.
But the message now is we don't want you guys rushing off on your own doing stuff, because you don't need to. Conserve your money, conserve your time, and we will be getting onto it once we've got the election thing settled. But thank you, Tosh, for the effort that you have been and are putting in.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Catherine, conference, how's it going?
Good.
Filled up yet?
Look, we're 4 weeks out, and yeah, it's getting there. I would say everybody to maybe leave quite a bit of space in your suitcases, because the merchandise we've been sent from the sponsors is insane. I don't think the goodie bag is going to have much paper in them this year.
Do we have to bring our own water?
At this stage, yes. However, I was up in Queenstown last Wednesday with Clayton having a meeting with them, and we got served some lovely boiled water. It was lovely hot. So, I mean, if you like a glass of hot water, you'll be good. No, they're hopefully having a water filtration system up in Queenstown that they've got down from one of the North Island councils up and running by the end of next week. So we should be good by the time conference comes around, fingers crossed. It is on my agenda for our meeting on Sunday to talk about water contingencies, but don't panic.
And can you please find a slot for a quick drink or something for the presidents, a quick president's drink together?
Oh, yep, sure. I'll just add that to my long list of things I have to schedule in. Hot
water.
I mean, so there is time from you can do it on the Friday night before the event, or Saturday before gala dinner if you wanted to. I can put in actually that's a good point. So there's no drinks per se before the gala dinner. So if you would like to, I can just schedule into the thing President's catch up at like 5:30 before the gala dinner up in the Reds Bar.
Yep, if you think that will work, that time slot, just please book it out. We want to have a
I'm saying this, and Clayton's not on this call, so I'm meeting up with him tomorrow to go over some plans. So I'll just tell him.
Yep.
And we should be fine.
Are you shots on the table?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just going to say, are there drinks on Friday night as well? Because I'm like a 2-drink max, unless I'm in the same building. So
well, are you staying at the Ridges?
Yeah,
We have many more than 2 then. So yeah, there's drinks on there is drinks on the Friday night. At this stage, it will be 1 drink because we actually don't have a sponsor yet. Unfortunately, a lot of the corporates around the place have their hands in their pockets with the current economic climate, and are not wanting to pay money to do much. So sponsorship has actually been quite hard to come by.
No, we'll buy our own. It's all right.
Have you penciled in a political spot?
Sorry?
Have you penciled in a political spot for someone?
Well, funnily enough, I was actually talking to Chris Bishop a couple of weeks back, and I said, you're going to come down to our conference if you win 2 weeks prior. He's like, well, I might not be the housing spokesperson. These things can all change,
Interesting.
But yeah, so well, they very well could, but no. So unfortunately, no political. But I mean, let's all hope the All Blacks get somewhere, and then on Sunday morning, people actually want to watch the rugby that we've scheduled in and booked in and paid for. Otherwise, we can all come down for a lovely morning tea. But no, everything's under control. We're looking forward to helping everybody. We've got about 15 full passes left to sell. There's some passes minus the gala dinner left to sell. And we are discussing at our meeting on Sunday selling some day passes as well. So we'll get all that information through Jan and out to you guys next week. The hotel is now completely booked up. So is the hotel next door, but there is plenty around the surrounding areas, which are still reasonably priced, so people can still come down. Does anybody have any questions about conference?
What's the transport situation from the airport to the hotel? Is it taxi, Uber, shuttle?
Taxis and shuttles. I'm unsure how Uber goes in Queenstown.
Okay.
I don't think it exists. Uber Eats, maybe.
There's a bus. $2.
A bus.
Is there?
The $2 bus. I think so. I don't know. I'm sure there's a bus.
When are you flying in, Nikki?
Anyone arriving about 10?
Thursday at 3:25.
Thursday,
Sensible-
3:25.
Sensible
Put
footwear.
it on the run sheet for someone to pick Nikki up.
Yeah, I live in Queenstown and I'm like 5 minutes from the airport.
Whoa, now you're telling us.
You've got a job.
Yeah,
You've
What
got a
about
job.
Friday morning at 10:40?
Friday morning, 10:30.
10:40 Friday morning.
Take down my phone number, 0274
We're all running this down.
886. Yeah, cool. Just do that. I've got a very nice vehicle. It'll feel like you've got the full, silver service. Trust me. 0274 886 805.
Marvelous.
If anybody is coming up on Thursday, Nikki, and flick me an email or a message. My phone number's everywhere on the OPIA website. And feel free to come out for a drink or dinner with the 4 of us that are going to be up there from Wednesday on the Thursday as well. If you want to, if you're there at night, we'll all be there. We would have packed all the goodie bags. We'll be ready to have a glass of wine.
Well, you're going to touch base with me, Catherine, anyway, aren't you? So I can come up and give you a hand with the goodie bags, yeah?
Yes.
My
Once
wife
I
and
have
I
a plan, I'll let you know, Lee.
We'll be there probably midday Thursday because we're actually coming up through Invercargill and Ranfurly. So, yep.
More than happy to
I'll
give
flick an
anyone a
email out
lift.
to the-
Sorry, more than happy to give anyone a lift into town. Just touch base with me if I'm about and I'm available. I can pick up from the airport, take you into town.
You could be our local Uber.
I used to drive a taxi. I used to own one, so I know every place in town. So used to. Please underscore the word used to.
We'll buy you
I'll
drinks Saturday night.
Oh, there you go. There
If
you
you-
go. Hey,
I'll
touch
flick
base
an
with me.
e-
If you pick up Kerry,
flick
he's
an
got
email
to
out.
want to know where the nightclub is. That's what he'll be after.
Yeah.
So does my husband.
Well,
He's coming to
very
the
close to
conference, so
town.
you'll have someone to take out in the town, Gary. Trust me.
Okay.
And I'll be having a car down there as well.
Have we wound this up now?
Oh, that is one thing though. The parking at the Ridges is very limited. So just be wary that if you aren't staying on site and you do have a vehicle, that you will probably need to come earlier for conference to get a park. 'Cause a lot of the parks will be taken up by people staying there. My conference committee is taking 10 cars between us, so
How much for the tickets?
there's not much parking. Now 670.
No, sorry. The tickets for parking anywhere you feel like it.
770.
Oh, on the
They're
street,
only
it's
40
actually free
bucks.
outside the Ridges.
They're $40. Trust me, I've made quite a few contributions to the local parks and gardens.
Okay,
I
and
really
is that
don't
per 24-hour period?
care. Yeah, pretty much.
Sweet. That's not
Oh, that's all
expensive.
good. Well, I'll flick an email out to the presidents anyway. So if anybody is up on Thursday, you can get in contact with me and we can meet up for a drink or something at 5 o'clock on Thursday or something before conference starts on the Friday, because we'll definitely need it by that stage. We're going up there Wednesday mornings.
Fair enough.
But looking
Nice
forward to
see
seeing
Mark
everybody.
from North Otago here too.
Hello, all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great to see you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Kerry.
Also, would it
Yeah.
help if I got an email out when we do an email next week about conference tickets? Would it help if I actually put some details about how to get from the airport?
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, wait. I'll put those details together and thank you, Jan, in advance for sending those out.
You don't give everyone my phone number. I'm sort of limited, but I'm happy to pick some people up. By all means, touch base
Oh,
with
come
me.
on, Lee. You said you could do everyone.
Not if you're coming on the same plane. I've got 5 seats and a big boot, but that's about it.
Haven't you got a trailer?
Trailer, you think?
Travel light.
I will
Okay,
put that
right.
information on my to-do
Yeah.
list.
Okay.
Taxi information.
All right.
All right. See you later.
Okay, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.